Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about more traumatic things. It's about my discussion today will be about how Black men are traumatized. So I was thinking about this topic the other day. I was thinking, why do Black men tend to leave their Black wives, their Black girlfriend, and why do they tend to make them baby mamas and just leave as if nothing has ever happened? So I come up with something. I think Black men carries a lot of trauma. They carry a lot of trauma that they don't talk about. The trauma that they carry is something that needs to be discussed. And the funniest thing is, Black men don't believe in going to therapy. They think it's silly. Even in Australia, like Black men always say, oh, therapy is not for Black people. Therapy is for white people. And I'm thinking, but you could really use therapy. You're really traumatized. So they have trauma because they they grew up in a society where they're poor, they had to struggle to get to where they had to be, and also they grew up in a society where there was not a lot of food. So obviously with all of these things combined, trauma will come. Even if they live in Africa, as you know, Black men don't have power. They could live in Africa, but they don't own anything there also. The white people own everything. Obviously, trauma will come. Whether they want to accept it or not accept it, trauma will come. And the other thing I was thinking about is they also have trauma because majority of them have experienced war. Men, like let's just say the men between 50 and over, all of these men have trauma because of the wars that they have seen. So when they then get into relationships with women, they put the trauma on the woman. They don't know how to be husbands. They don't know how to be fathers, and the trauma, it passes on. It becomes a generational thing. And I see it with young African men. They say, oh, we don't want to behave like the way our dads behaved. But then they're doing the same thing. They leave their women, they leave their children. They don't know, they don't care about whether the kids get the best education or not, because the parents never cared also. They never cared about them also getting an education. So as you can see, there is a lot of trauma within the Black community. And that's why they're not good fathers. They're not good husbands, and you will find them and with the husband part. These African men, you find one of them having so many girlfriends and wives, and you would think to yourself, aren't you married? Don't you not have a wife? And I've seen it with my own eye. A man is married, yet they're busy chasing after little girls in their 20s. And if you say anything about it, oh, my father, my grandfather had, it's in the African nature. You girls come overseas and you want to be like the whites. You want us to be like the whites. Well, our grandfather had many wives. It's like they don't want to subconsciously break generational trauma. They want to keep that going. I just can't comprehend how crazy it is. And oh my God, and don't get me started on their narcissist behavior. Jesus Christ, you would think that these African men have something to show for. They don't. What have they built? White men are taking over Africa. White men are the leaders in Africa. They have not built anything. They don't even know how to build a family. They don't even know how to build a family structure. They don't even know. And yet they don't want to seek therapy. They don't want to advocate for them to even know, to even go to therapy. Apparently, therapy is not for Black men. Therapy is not for Black people. I'm saying this because I know I've done social work. And we've talked a lot about generational trauma. We've talked a lot about, how things that has happened to your grandparents can also transfer to the new generation if you don't work hard to break this generation curses. And I believe it's generational curses. If you think about it, how can a lot of the African men not be in the house? How can they not be in the house? How can they think that it is okay to abandon your children? And I'm not generalizing all of them. I'm sure there's some really good African men that has healed the trauma, or that they are working towards healing, But I'm talking from the ones I have seen, the ones I've come across. They're all like womanizers. They don't want to heal the trauma, but they want to play woman. They want to keep having babies that are going to grow up with more trauma, yet build nothing for these kids. They build no structure for the kids. Look at the Asians. Look at the Indians. They all have structure. They all have fathers. They all work collectively to a community. But it's not like that for the black men. In fact, they want their women. They want us women to be the ones to take on the male responsibilities. They do. You will find an African mother working, paying off the house, paying off everything in that, cooking, cleaning, taking care of the children. And you think, where is the father? Is not there. He is not there. It is honestly so sad. And I'm sad for our community. I am sad for the generation. We have no sense of belonging as a community. Like, for example, majority of us that comes to the West society, the black men don't have power. And then because they don't have power, they tend to have depression. They can't build anything because this is not their land. Even if they build something, they build it for their family, but not as a whole, collectively, So it's just a lot of trauma that's been going on within the society. And in Australia, instead of the kids, African kids working, because, instead of the kids, doing really well in school, doing amazing things. And I'm not saying all of them. I'm just saying some. Instead of, you see the African boys in gang, killing, doing a lot. I live in Queensland, in Brisbane, especially there's a suburb called Acacia Ridge. There's a lot of young African boys, young male, but the amount of crime that happens in that suburb, the amount of killing. I personally know a young boy that got killed at a park. The boy had no father. The mother, as I said, the mother is not around because she's a single mother. She has to work, has to provide. There's no time for the kids. There's no time to raise these young boys, because and then it's like, where is the father? They're getting in gangs because they have no leadership within the communities. They have none. And then don't get me started. The African men tend to look down on the single mothers. Yet you're the one that creates single mothers. You leave your single mother. You leave your baby mama. You leave your wife. It is so sad. And I know a man also. He's got 6 kids and a wife. But this man has a girlfriend on the side. I just don't know how you can explain that. He doesn't think about, okay, let me be a good role model to my kids. 6 of them, 4 boys. If 4 boys are seeing his father doing this, what do they think? They're going to think that this behavior is normal. They're going to think that there's nothing that it is wrong with what he's doing. And then they're going to get girlfriends. They're going to get a wife. And they're going to treat these girlfriends and wife the same way the father treats their mother. It is so sad. And the saddest part of all is that as African women, we let this to keep happening. We let them to continue to do this to us. They build us no houses. They build us no structures. They build us no a working system. None of that. They run away to come to the West society and also still manage to have gangs, still manage to have drugs, still manage to do a lot of things but building a community. Anyways, I guess the moral of the story is African men, black men, really need to look deep down within themselves and work on themselves. They need to stop all these polygamous things that they're doing. They need to stop. They have to stop. If you know this woman, you don't love her, don't go creating children with this man. With this woman. Do not have children with a woman that you know you don't love. Because then you're creating generational trauma. You're creating a broken household. Because you couldn't keep it in your pants. And for the woman as well. If a man makes you pregnant, and they leave, make sure you report it to the government so that they can pay for their crime. Because as African women, we don't want to report the men. We don't want to report them because we don't want them to think of us a certain way. We would rather have them and have them, will be the side chick, they'll have other wives, but have them there so that we can say we have a man. I don't know, man. I don't know. So for me, I would like to see a better community, and it starts with African men. It really does start with the man. It cannot start with the woman. We can do, but it cannot start with us. Look at the Indians, for example, in Australia. You will never see an Indian like rating. Maybe there is, but you will never see like an Indian single mothers. I know for a fact. I live next to a lot of Indians. Our neighborhood is basically India. So I have seen that majority of the Indian men are in the house. They in the house. They're taking care of their wives. They're taking care of their kids. I go to the park. You see the Indian fathers with their children. But I'd never see that with the African men. In fact, there's two girls on my street. They're single mothers with 5 kids. 5 kids with no husband. And I'm thinking, at some point in time, you as a woman, you're the problem. Wouldn't you have stopped? But even us as a woman, we are creating like trauma. Why we keep having babies with these men if they're not going to be there? Why? So we can have a man who's not there? So it has to start with first fixing this issue of not having a father in the house. First, like, yo, man, I don't even know. Second, it has to start with them building a structure in the community. Not just churches that are not working. Churches that you will find them raping little girls. Not just churches that are not working. I don't know, man. I don't know what the community will do. I don't know how they want to fix these issues, but they have to start. You cannot have alcohol. You cannot be an alcoholic. You cannot be on drugs. You cannot have baby mamas everywhere. And yet think that you would develop a society that's working. And I understand, really, I understand that African men have trauma because of the war. They don't have power in their own country. They grow up in poor background. I understand all of these things. I understand. But if they don't work on it, they don't see a counselor, they don't see a psychologist. I know these things are not cheap, but if you can buy alcohol, you can afford to pay for counseling. I'm sorry, I said it. Unpopular opinion. If you can afford drugs, if you can afford alcohol, you can afford for counseling. And also, if you can afford to drink, you can afford to get condoms so that you don't keep creating babies everywhere. You can be celibate as well as a man. Don't have babies if you cannot look after them. I see it, and it irks my spirit when I see a single mothers of 5. And you're like, where is the father? A woman is struggling at home with 5 kids on her own. And the father is nowhere to be found because they're polygamous. By nature, we are polygamous. I just don't know. I don't know. As African people, as African communities, we have to do better. We have to be an example to these our kids that we're having now so that they don't turn out the way that we turned out. The African man needs to start being family orientated. And I'm not saying all of them. And I'm saying some of your husbands, I'm sure they're really amazing. They take care of you. My husband is good. But I'm just saying for the ones, what I have seen, that amount of like trauma that is within African men. And it is not talked about. African men don't talk about trauma. Apparently, it's only for the white people. It's not for the black people. So I don't know. And African men have unrealistic expectations of the African woman. We cannot carry a whole country, a whole community. That's what the man is there for. Do they even know these things? Do they even realize these things? Building a structure that's working, it starts with a man. That might sound misogynist, but it starts with men. It doesn't start with a woman. Because a woman, we have so much things going on already. We have to take care of the kids. We have to get pregnant. We have to, our health is put to risk when we are pregnant. We have to work. So building a structure that's working, it does not start with us. It does not. it starts with the man. Sorry, guys, I'm just ranting on. I'm so upset and I see it, and there's nothing we can do about it, you know. But I guess it is a discussion that needs to be talked about. We have to talk about these things if we want to have a better future for our kids. If we want to see, if people even want to start respecting African people, African men. And nobody respects African men. Each time they see an African person is that they think, okay, this person is in a gang. But you will never think like that about the Asians, or Chinese are Asians. But you wouldn't think about that about the Chinese. So I just don't know, because they actually have a structure that's working, and you would never see a Chinese woman with 5 kids and she's single and doesn't have a man in the house. That's never gonna happen. What do you think why people are saying, oh, Chinese women and Korean women need to have more babies? Because they don't want these kind of struggles. We need to have the same mindset. We cannot be having 10 babies by ourselves. We cannot be having 10 babies by ourselves and think that's normal for a woman. Look at the Chinese woman. Look at the Korean woman. Let me tell you, I've never seen this from a Chinese person or a Korean woman where they have a million babies by themselves. I have not seen it. Maybe if you see one, maybe one kid, like, I don't know. But it's just within our community, it's normal. I know a woman personally, an African woman. She's got 10 kids by herself. And I said to myself, but these 10 kids also, you know, they not just one baby daddy, multiple baby daddies. So this woman at some point in time, she couldn't have told herself, let me stop having babies, you know. And then her last partner, right, he was such a womanizer, abuser. I think he also, like, you know, allegedly he assaulted the daughter, but the woman still took this man back after he was reported to the police that he assaulted her daughter and he touched her inappropriate. This African woman still took this man on. My husband, I guess, out of having 6 kids, like, you know, for different men, he was the one that chose to marry her. Maybe, you know, she felt like, okay, me too, I finally won. But he assaulted her daughter. She took him back. And that goes to show our mindset as African women as well. And, oh, man, I don't know. We have to do better as a community. We cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting different result. I don't know. But anyways, thank you for watching my rant. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and, you know, comment in the comment section if you have anything to add on. But I would like for you guys to subscribe to my channel, because I am a new YouTuber and I am growing. And on this channel, we talk about traumatic things that we could work on. And yeah, so thank you very much and have a good day. And I love you all.